Good evening. My name is Crystal Kelly. This is Your Mental Health Matters, brought to you by ONV. Tonight, we have a very, very special guest in the building. We are so excited to have Mr. Thomas here to promote his book, to talk to us about his story, all that good stuff. So, sir, I'll leave the floor to you. Introduce yourself, your guest, and tell us a little bit about you.
My name is Boris Thomas. I am a new author, writer of the book From Childhood to Fatherhood that was published January this year, 2025. Okay. It is on Amazon, so you can go to www.amazon.com. Yes. It's available in digital ebook as well as paperback copies. Okay. This is my cousin, Terrance.
Okay.
This is my cousin, Terrance Cassell.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
He's my first cousin.
Okay.
So what had inspired me to write this book, I've been through a lot of experiences as a parent and as a father. Parenting is hard.
Yes. Come on.
We can relate to that. Yeah.
And being a father, a Black father, can be even more tough. Yeah. And so I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been married as a father, and then also as a single father. A little bit of background. I got my kid. I received custody of my kids when they were young, and pretty much raised them by myself. I had a strong support system with my parents. Okay. That did tremendous. I mean, they were just tremendous. And matter of fact, I don't even know how I would have even made it if it wasn't for God and if it wasn't for my parents being a strong support system. And so I just felt a need to, I felt inspired to write my experiences out because I wanted to put a message out to fathers, whether single fathers, soon to be fathers, married fathers, just fathers in general, not targeting a specific culture or race. Right. But just wanting fathers to know that it can be done. It can be tough, but it can be done. Whatever experiences that I've had, I'm transparent in my book. I let people know I'm vulnerable. I say, hey, I've dropped the ball several times. I don't put on a facade and try to pretend as though I had it all together because I didn't. But there were a lot of successes as well. And so that I'm proud of. Okay. And so I have 3 children by my kid's mother, who was my wife, or my ex-wife now. But I ended up getting custody of my kids, raising them, and lost my son. I had 2 girls and 1 boy. My son was in the middle. And I ended up losing him tragically to the streets. It was just some decisions that he was making that, sometimes once kids get to a certain age, you can only tell them so much. That's right. It gets to a point where it's decision-making time. So did the best I could to guide my kids, teach them, pour into them, instill in them the word of God, definitely everything that I could possibly think of on my end in order to pour in them and make them conducive people, so they can grow, and prepare them for society, prepare them for what was next. So it was tough. And so through my experiences, I actually started writing this book, believe it or not, about 4 years ago during the pandemic. Wow. Okay. While we were on lockdown, I started writing, and then after lockdown, there was just a lot of things that transpired in my life, in my personal life, and just busyness that caused me to kind of put the book down, pick it back up, put it down. So at the end of 2023, December, I made a decision. I said, I'm going to finish this book.
I love that. Yeah, you were determined.
I'm determined.
Right.
You know, I was always taught, whatever you start,
That's
you
right.
better finish.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I picked it back up, and then I just made a decision. I said, you know what? I'm going to X off X amount of months, and I'm going to work on this like hard, like day in and day out. I was working on it while I was at work, working on it. I'll wake up and work on it.
Right.
You know, I mean, every opportunity I was working on the book until it was complete.
Determined.
Wow.
And so I learned a lot during this process of writing a book. And I'm just praying and just hoping, you know, I'm not so much as a first time writer, you know, I'm not really concerned with sales.
Okay.
It's nice. My ultimate goal is to reach out to fathers.
Right,
If
that's
it's just, it's 14 chapters in there. If it's just one thing that they can grab, you know, if it's just from one chapter or
Right.
one verse or whatever, you know, I want them to be able to take something and be able to navigate through life and use it, you know, in their parenting skills. So,
Love that.
so that's where I'm at with
what
that.
would be the I have two questions so far. So what would be the main thing that you would want the readers to get from your book? Out of the 14 chapters that you have, or anything else in between?
Yeah. Can you be more specific with that? Because that's a very broad question.
Okay, maybe I'll start with the other question. How old were you when you became a father?
How old I was? 25.
Okay, so you weren't a young father per se, and did you feel like you were ready at that time, or did you learn a lot of it, which most parents do learn most of it while you're in it?
That's right.
And that's exactly what happened to me.
Right.
I didn't have the advantage. It's not an excuse, but it's a reality. I didn't have the advantage of having my father in my life. I did have my stepfather,
Right.
but we didn't really bond and have a real communication or connection or relationship rather. So my mom was kind of forced to kind of wear multiple hats, which in turn, you know, kind of growing up, I started getting rebellious, this, that, and another. And so it gets to the point, fast forward to my 20s, I end up meeting my kid's mother. We got married and had our first child. And so it was at that point, hundreds of miles away from family that's in Fort Wayne. It was just us. And so I was forced to learn how to become a father at that point. It's a lot of things that I talk about in the book that really goes back to me learning by trial and error. You know, and I also explain in the book that parenting, there's not a manuscript that you can hand somebody and say, here, read this. And now you got it. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
A lot of it is hands-on. A lot of it, you know, like I said before, you're going to drop the ball, you're going to fail, and then you learn from your mess-ups and your mistakes. And so to answer your question, I think that that started my journey at the age of 25, just learning. And then God was sending people my way, even out of town, godly men, you know, men that I was working with, that I could kind of watch, ask questions, things of that nature. And doing that, it kind of helped me to gain an understanding of what parenting was all about and being a father. But ultimately, I think that it was just in my heart to want to father, you know, and I don't know if it was a subconscious thing of me not having my father, but I was determined to not be a statistic.
There
Excuse me.
There you go.
I wanted to make sure that I wasn't a deadbeat, that I wasn't in jail, that I wasn't in prison. You know what I mean? I wanted to make sure that I was free and out there for my children.
That's right. That's right.
So what are some of the things that you did differently with your kids that you may not have seen growing up?
Great question.
So establishing a relationship. I did my best to be more of a relationship father than more of a tyrant or do this, do that, or else you're going to suffer the consequences. I did more of communicating with them as far as like family talks and groups,
Okay.
sitting down, getting an understanding of how their day was and what's making you mad today, and share with me how your day, getting into allowing them to have the floor open to talk to me than me just talking to them all the time. Telling them that I love them.
Big
Growing up, and I don't know if it's an old school type thing or it was just my family, but I love my family. My family is a great family. I came from a very great family, but my family wasn't the type to express that they love you. They're the type to show you that they love you. So verbally they wouldn't say it, but they would show it.
Yeah.
So I made it my business to do both, express my love to my kids. And so those were some things that I did that I didn't experience growing up. And I don't know, just doing everything that I could to make sure that I was there consistently for them.
I love that.
And I'm not saying that wasn't the case for me,
Right.
but I don't know. There was just this drive in me to make sure that the things that weren't there that I didn't experience, that I want to make sure that they experienced.
It was like the opposite.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have that role model growing up from your own father.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of times that what we follow is in our parents' footsteps, but the lack of it made you drive even more.
It did.
Right.
You know, to be there to show up for your kids, to make sure your kids had a voice.
Yes.
You were present.
Yes.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Right.
That was mandatory.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Even when I was tired, I was tired a lot. I made sure I was
wow.
still present.
So here's a question I have for you. So during this journey of you writing your book, what was some of your struggles? You know, like you said, I know there was times where you had to put the book down, pick it back up, put it back down. But I guess emotionally and mentally, like, what was some of your struggles in this process?
So it was very challenging, and writing a book can be very draining.
Right.
Because you're trying to balance working, you got a full-time job,
Right.
you're trying to balance life. At the time, my kids were still at home. So still, being involved in their activities, this, that, and the other. But it was a struggle with staying focused. A lot of times when you write so much, you get writer's block.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I just had to know when to put it down and pick it back up. There was times that I just simply procrastinated,
Yeah.
But yeah, there were some struggles. Had a major life incident that happened, which I was sharing with you. I lost my son, April 12, 2023. So that was one of the things that really kind of, at the time, put the book off on hold because I was trying to heal.
Yeah, most
I
definitely.
was trying to overcome what I had just gone through, which was something major. But it was through that my son's death that really gave me that boost to say, you know what, and he was rooting for me with this, and so every time I think about him and think about the time and energy that I put into my children, it just gave me the fuel to just continue this book until it was done.
Wow.
So yeah, through the adversity, through the opposition and all the struggles and working and all that, it still came out. So.
And we appreciate you for like sharing your story through this book. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were naked.
Absolutely.
Vulnerable,
Absolutely.
So
Totally.
as a Black man, that's something that is unheard of, especially in our society, in the world that we live in.
Yeah.
So for you to be able to express yourself and be okay with saying, I'm not okay, these are the struggles I went through, and to be able to touch as many people as possible, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I have the one chapter. Of course, I haven't read all of it,
Yeah.
but I like the one that says "Raising Girls Compared to Boys." Can you talk a little? You say you had 2 girls.
Ooh, come on.
Yeah, that's a long chapter too.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Wow.
So there's So what I learned is, like I said, I have 2 girls
Yeah.
and had 1 son, and he was in the middle. There's a big difference. You have to learn, or what I'll just speak on me.
Right.
What I had to learn is that, first of all, when it comes to girls, you have to understand their emotions primarily, because women are emotional beings. And I'm not saying, I mean, us men, we have emotions as well.
Right.
But there's a difference between girls and boys when raising them. And so I had to learn how to balance. I had to understand, even with having 2 girls, there was still a different way, an approach of how I would approach, exactly, for each one. I would approach my oldest daughter different than my youngest daughter, and my son different.
Right.
So, it was very, it was a learning experience for me. And it was kind of tough at times, because my oldest daughter is more aggressive. She's more like me. She's more outspoken. My youngest daughter is kind of timid. She's kind of passive. My son was like me as well, very outspoken, charismatic. Just, you're really not going to hurt his feelings, that type of thing. So there's different approaches. When it came to my girls, I was very
Protective.
I was very overprotective, even though I tried not to be.
Right.
But there was a reason behind that, because I didn't want them to fall victim to any type of abuse from men.
Come on.
I didn't want them to feel like they needed validation from men.
Yeah.
And so there's certain things that I would teach them that I'm not gonna say that I didn't teach my son, but there was a difference. Yeah. So with my son, I was teaching him how to treat women, how to treat young ladies.
Right.
How to pull, and I started with him pulling out chairs. I would have him pull out chairs for his sisters, open up the doors for his sisters, take on more masculine roles that I didn't expect for the girls to do, cutting the grass. And that's not saying that women can't do it,
of course,
but there's certain things that I would have him to do that I felt like young men should know, before you actually enter that adult stage. So yeah, there was definitely a difference.
So you had mentioned earlier about people that poured into you. People that you looked up to, people that helped you along this journey. So looking at everything that has transpired, what were some of those life lessons? Do you have one or a couple of them that kind of stick out for you when it comes to the journey of writing this book and allowing people to pour into you?
Well, it happened in stages of people pouring into me. It happened in stages. I remember the most impactful stage of my life was Pastor Anthony Payton poured into my life at Cummins Yard Community Church.
Yeah.
And that's when I had returned back to Fort Wayne. He was the first one to disciple me. I had been churched all along, all my life. There's a difference between being churched and actually having a relationship with God.
Very true. Very true.
And so he was the first man that was my spiritual father that poured into me. And this is when I was going through my transformation of, trying to do right, being a family man, seeking God. And so that was very important to me. And and this went on for years, and till this day, I could still, I believe, call him, and he will always give me prayer. He always give me a piece of advice and love.
I love it.
And so he's one of the primary men that was in my life that, because I didn't have a father, I looked at him as being a father. Not only that, I wasn't the only one. It was my cousin and another young man that wasn't from Indiana, but he treated all 3 of us as his sons.
Wow.
And so I praise God, and I think back at all the times that was an awakening for me to do better.
Yeah.
And I actually mentioned, I made mention of him in the book.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So yeah, he's one of the men that I can look back and that really inspired me in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I love that. Miss, you have another question?
You can go ahead.
Okay, I want to kind of tap into the grief part. We're gonna get to you too, cousin, here in a little bit. Okay, you're just chilling right now. No, you're good. I love that. So, when it came to the loss of your son, how did you cope through that? Because everybody cope with grief differently, but for you, how did you maneuver through that?
well, I had lost a lot of people along the way, family members, friends, associates, coworkers, people that I was really close to, but nothing hit home like it did when I lost my son.
Yeah.
So this was a total different animal for me, so to speak, to try to learn how to cope with that. I use prayer a lot. I had to, but sometimes, I mean, it had got so bad to where, as far as mentally and psychologically, waking up and just thinking that this was just a dream.
Yeah.
Sometimes I couldn't pray. And so God had appointed a lot of people, a close net of people that I could confide in, that I could be real with and say, look, this is where I'm at. This is where my mind is right now. I'm just being real with you. And it wasn't pleasant. Some of the things that I was thinking, the thoughts that was going through my mind, it wasn't all good.
Right.
And so I had to connect with people that could help me, number one, get out of my emotions, and number two, help me to see the reality of things. I did seek counseling, professional counseling.
I love that.
And still seek counseling.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed at all to get
Come on
counseling.
now.
You know,
Speak it.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
It is.
You know?
Especially, again, I don't mean to cut you off,
No, you
but
don't.
for you to say that, and then again, you being a black man,
Right.
people, they just don't want to seek counseling because of the stigma.
Because of the stigma.
Yeah, thinking, okay, you're a guy, but you have feelings too.
Absolutely.
And if you don't get those feelings out in a healthy way, it comes out through anger.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying?
That's right.
Or being violent.
Yes.
And so, especially as a male, I mean, it just comes out differently versus a female.
Right.
If you don't manage those emotions in a healthy way.
Right.
Yes.
So for you to have that outlet and be okay with, you know what, I need my person. I need to have that safety person that I can go to process this.
Yeah.
So yes, that's beautiful.
So with that as well, and the fact that you were being intentional in raising your kids and not missing a beat as far as from what you missed as a child, how did that play into losing your son?
Can you repeat that again? I'm trying to.
So basically, and you have a lot of young people that grow up without their dads.
Correct.
And fast forward to the late teens, early 20s, they make excuses to getting out in the streets and doing whatever things that they shouldn't do. I guess it's the question is, how did that, I guess, play on your feelings when you know you were doing?
I got you.
Okay.
So that was one of the hardest, like out of everything, out of all my parenting and raising, and out of all the sacrifices, out of everything that I went through, praying and hoping that my kids would, they would do well and still be alive.
Right.
It was very difficult for me to process of losing my son.
Oh, yeah.
Because of me not having my father there and all the time and the commitment that I poured into them.
Yeah.
But again, it gets to the point to where young people get to a point where they have choices to make.
That's true. That's
true.
true.
I can't be there 24 hours, 7 days a week. I cannot. The only thing I can do is hope and pray and depend on everything that I've taught you.
That's right.
That in the classroom, that eventually when you go out there in the world, that you can apply everything and apply it. But yeah, that was such of a heartache for me, because I know not only me, but my family in general, especially my mom and my parents, they poured a lot into my kids as a strong support system. And so I wasn't the only one that's devastated. My whole family was devastated because, to just see that come to an end, it was just an unfortunate loss,
Wow.
Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
So I see you have your cousin. Can you kind of speak on like y'all relationship, like the support? Because you're here to support him, and I just want to kind of hear a little bit from you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrance Cassell. I am a local comedian. I've been doing stand-up for about 15 years. I do have a comedy album called Black Hoosier.
Okay.
My cousin has always been a great support system to me. Boris, BD, Bobo.
Said Bobo.
Has always been, because I had a son shortly after. Well, when I turned 22, I had a son. So not having my father in my life either, I didn't know how to approach fatherhood either. Like I had a father in my life who died when I was 11. And I had a stepfather come into my life about 13.
Okay.
And then he passed on later on. So not having the tools to actually know how to father. As a male, you should always look to other males, especially if you venturing into doing something.
There you go.
Being a father is venturing into doing something.
Right.
So, I was in the military, so once I moved back, Boris was here. We used to link up all the time. My kids play with his kids, and I could see his growth and maturity from where he came from, because Bobo used to be a street guy. Oh yeah. Bobo used to have some rap albums. Bobo, yeah. But to come back here and see him take on the full role of being a father.
Come on.
To 3 children.
Wow.
It was something that I had to admire.
Right.
So as men, we should always look for other men.
I love that.
To give us representation, especially good representation of fathers.
That's right.
Because,
that's right.
It at least gives you a platform to go off of.
Come on.
So what do you tell the young people that don't know how to look to the other men? Because maybe their dad wasn't there, or the ones that were there, they just kind of push them to the side. So I guess with that is a 2-part thing, whereas you guys were mature enough at a young age to know that and to look for those that were already, kind of there. So what do you say to those that are coming behind you if you know that they have a problem with reaching out?
I think it was easier in my generation, because the older generation always kind of young blood, little nephew, always, and being in the military so young, it was always older males around, and they had children, they had wives, they had families, and you could see it done the proper way.
Right.
And then recall the way you was raised, and you know what I'm saying? So then you have a compare and contrast then.
That's true.
So then you have those males, you see the representation that they give, and then, you kind of, you mimic. As men, we do mimic. We mimic fatherhood. So being around other fathers, like I said, getting together with Boris and his kids, like he's an excellent barber.
Come on.
I've been cutting my hair since I was 6. I won't believe. The first haircuts wasn't too good.
Let him work for you.
Yeah. but
Don't tell it all.
But he got cold blood. So being able to take my son over there and get his haircut.
I love that.
We talking his kids around. We're having conversations.
Come on.
And being able to see his maturity and growth as a father, and working 2 jobs or 3 jobs sometime, or driving a big old van, because you want to make sure that your kids get to where he wasn't about flash. He could have been. You know what I'm saying? So I got a lot of aspects of fatherhood from him and other cousins and men in my life. So like I said, back in the day, it was more prevalent for other men to want a nephew or, school up. Now, I want to say it's not that prevalent now, but I do believe if younger men do reach out, or they do have men in there, because you're always going to see a man that has a family.
That's true.
And see
That's
how,
true.
how he's carrying himself, and that should intrigue you as a father.
Yeah.
You know, because it's good ways to father and it's bad ways to father. You could be in a household and not a father.
That's right.
That's it.
Right.
Like I wanted to always be in my son's life, because I seen people like Boris always in his kid's life.
I love that.
So it was like, no matter what, his kids stayed with him. So if that was going to be an aspect, that's the aspect that I wanted. So my son had always stayed with me, always been in my life, whether me and his mother was together or not.
Right.
So I believe men have to try harder to be fathers. It's not easy.
It's not.
It's not easy, because you are going to get rejection from that mother. You're going to get rejection from that child sometime.
Come on, that's it.
And it's on me as a father to accept that rejection, but still push past
That's it.
and let you know. Like I tell my son all the time, I'm your greatest teacher in life. You're going to have teachers in middle school, high school, college, but I'm your greatest teacher in life.
That's right.
Anything you need to know about being a black male in this society, I have the answer.
Wow.
You know, and I know Boris raised his son the same way, but we got to talk about another aspect of it, is that calling to the street. That calling to the street sometimes over prevails motherhood, fatherhood, familyhood.
That's true.
Anything.
Right.
I lost a brother to the streets at a young age. At I believe I was 15. He ended up getting shot and killed in the streets. Wow. You know, so the aspect of that call to the streets for young black males that don't have fathers or don't have positive role models, even if they do, sometimes that street that call is even stronger. Yeah. You know, because sometimes they don't want to. I'm not a church boy. I'm not a good. They want to prove something.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think for us as a society, we have to take that want to prove something out of it. Come on, we can't idolize that street life. We can't idolize anything negative and hope our kids don't go toward it. That's right.
It's a dead end.
It's a dead end. And I've been working with children in behavioral health for over 20 years, and it's not getting better. It's getting worse. Some of these kids can't read and write, but they know Cardi B song front to back.
Thank you.
They know drill music front to back. And that's that call to the streets that's pulling our children away from us. Yeah. So it's hard to be a good parent if you can't block out a lot of that call to the street. Yeah. And I believe as a father, I tried to do that. I didn't want to stay in the hood.
Right.
If I'm going to look for housing, it's going to be in a great neighborhood. Why? Because I want my son to live in a better neighborhood than I did.
That's it.
I'm going to go to every school and make sure that this is the right school for my son before I enroll him. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show up at school if you're saying that his grades is not the way they're supposed to be.
Being present.
That's what being a father is. And if you're not willing to take on that role and be tired, because I worked 3 jobs and went to school and still raised my son.
That's
and dealt with my son.
That's right.
Whether I was tired, whether I was late picking him up, my bad. Whether anything was going on. CPS almost was called, but it's not because I'm a bad dad. It's because I'm a tired dad. And that's how you're supposed to be as a dad.
Come on.
You ain't supposed to have no energy. You ain't supposed to have no money. You ain't supposed to have no fun.
All right.
Yeah.
And if you start realizing that, the better fathers we be.
Amen.
That's good.
So we're gonna wrap up. I mean, this need to be like part 2. Yeah, part 2.
Hey, let's make it a part 2.
Come on, for real.
Yeah, it was good.
So tonight, again, we thank Mr. Boris Thomas for you being here, for you to be here, sharing your input. If y'all don't know, from childhood to fatherhood, y'all need to get this book. So, Mr. Boris, I want you to wrap up. What is it that you want our audience to know when it comes to your book, when it comes to being a dad, stepping to the plate?
Yeah. So, so what I want my audience to know, and again, is I'm not targeting a specific race or anything. Right. But again, parenting is hard. Fatherhood is hard. But you can definitely do it. You just need to have the will. You have to have the drive. You have to have the love for your kids to see them do better than how you were raised or the things that you went through. And just to know that, God in my belief is in Christ. That's right. So I boldly say, I can do anything through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. The same God that does it for me, or that did it for me, can also do it for you. So, as a father, there's going to be some challenges. There's going to be some pitfalls. There's going to be some failures. There's going to be some successes. But it all boils down to you. What is it that you want to do? What is it that you want for your kids, for your kids' future? And again, it goes back to a tremendous amount of sacrifices, whether you're married, whether you're single. Fatherhood it can be definitely rewarding. But you're going to have to want to put in the work.
That's
and
right.
you got to want to be in it for the long haul.
That's right.
Everything is not going to go well all the time, but you will have those good times. You have those mountain times. You'll have those valley times.
That's right.
So yeah, just embrace your kids, love them, continuously be there for them as a good father.
I love that.
And yeah, go ahead.
Were you going to say something?
I just think fatherhood is protect, provide, guide. Protect them from the decisions that they're going to make, that you got to tell them they can't make them decisions because it's going to mess up their life. Provide. Kicking your kids out at 18 ain't right. You provide for them until they're able to provide for themselves. As a black community, we need to stop doing that. And guide them. You guide them in the right direction. Sometimes your kid going to want to go this way. You're going to have to take them by the hips, by the shoulder, and bring them back this way.
Come on, that's it.
It's your job as a parent. Even if they're in the penitentiary, you guide them out of the penitentiary.
Come on. So again, this is Your Mental Health Matters. We're going to have our guests back for another podcast because, again, this is going to be a part 2. So one last thing I want to tell you guys, again, tune in every first and third Friday of each month at 8:30. And I want to leave you guys with this. Strong fathers take care of their minds as well as their families. Your well-being is the foundation of your future. Protect your mind.